Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to another live chat, monthly live chat that we've been doing so far. Wherever you are logging in from, drop me a line, say hi, say your city, say your country. Again, like I always say, one of the best parts about these lives is to see how um, wide it is across the world. Ahmed, I see you. Egypt in the house. So, for those of you who are joining for the first time, um, I usually do these live chats on multiple platforms. I go live on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. So, if you're here and you see me kind of like looking side to side, there's nobody else here. It's just another screen. But there's lots of people behind that screen. So, technically, there's a lot of people here, right? Hi, Pamela from Germany. Who else we got in the house? Ahmed is one of my favorite people in Egypt, one of my workout buddies as well. Polina, Davnarik, I don't know where you're from. Cairo, obviously, Ahmed. Polina, Netherlands, that's it. Already a international audience. Wade in the house from New York. Hedman, New Jersey. Maribel. Davnarik's from France. All right, cool. Yeah, so when you log in, just throw hello and then say where you're from. Give a shout out to anyone else you want to give a shout out to. I can do that for you. So these live chats, if you're not familiar, are, I guess, one of the ways I like to give back, and also where I like to share some of the insights that I have, as well as answer some of the questions that I've received that I think can benefit a lot of people beyond just the person asking them. So obviously, as an instructor, I get a whole bunch of stuff. As a coach, I get a whole bunch of stuff. And then there's obviously the general observations, just day to day, and seeing students or seeing people or interacting with people. And also, not even that, just my own life and everything that I'm going through and that I'm learning in the process. That's what these chats are for, is so that I can share all of that with you. So, one of the best ways to take advantage of these live chats is to ask questions. Ask questions. If I cannot get to you today, I will get to it at some point in a future live chat or in a class or something like that. But ask questions. The other reason I always encourage questions is because you, in the process of formulating a question, you start to discover yourself. And most of the time, we are quite comfortable with just going through life and getting the information, whether we asked for it or not, or getting the instructions, whether we need them or not, and not actually taking the time to ask questions that can further clarify our own purpose. So if you have questions, ask them. It's a lot easier with Facebook and YouTube because it kind of shows up in a column next to the screen where I'm speaking. So if you happen to be on Instagram but can also log in from Facebook or YouTube, I would suggest asking your questions over there. If you are here just on Instagram, that's totally fine too. I believe there is a question button at the bottom. At least that's where mine is. So you might be able to see that. You can ask your questions there. And at least that way, I don't have to go try and scroll through the Instagram feed to try and find somebody, because every time, and it doesn't matter how many times I do these live chats, every single time I do that, I do something wrong with the screen. So I'm going to try not to do that. I'm going to try and just, click on that thing. So please, 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 again, if you are writing something, questions into the chat on Instagram, please just click on that question mark button and throw them in there. It would be so much easier for me to get to you. All right, some more people in the house from different places. Again, like I said, let me know where you're from. Say hello. Vika from Georgia, one of the most beautiful people I know and a phenomenal dancer. Deborah in the house from Calcutta, India. KB Harper from Sparta, Georgia. Cool. Georgie from Sofia, Bulgaria. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Henry, I see you now that I know what your Instagram handle is. All right. I love you more, Vika. And in this place, we've got Mario, sorry, my bad, from Peru. Yvonne from RD. Where's RD? I don't know where RD is. You might have to put that in full letters or full words or whatever. And we got Kitchu Singh from Tamil Nadu, India. Wow. Really diverse. Like, I'm always surprised. I don't care how many times I say it, and I don't care how many times you've heard it. I'm always very surprised by the diversity of the people in my community, ultimately, and I feel so fortunate to have a chance to communicate with so many people around the world, to be able to influence so many people around the world, and to be able to get feedback and input and questions and interactions from so many people around the world. Like, I think we're really take that for granted sometimes, and I think the whole aspect of going online and everything kind of being a little bit more virtual makes it something we might be taking for granted. But yeah, these live chats always show me that it definitely shouldn't be taken for granted. All right. And Sean here from Miami, Alex, Brazil. All right. So if you've got questions, again, like I said, throw them into the chat. Couple of things with this live chat as well. If you would like to support the channel, Instagram, one of the easiest ways to do that is to just hit subscribe. If you like the content, if there is something that was answered for you that maybe you have a friend who might also benefit from that answer, you can share that. That's always a great way to support the channel as well. If you want to buy a badge, you can do that. If you want to buy a coffee, you can find that in the description. That's always a nice way to support the person behind the channel. And a couple of other things before we get started. Some of you have been seeing these questions I've been asking about spins. And it's because I already have a course online that is focused just on solo axis spins, but a single spin. So you really get all the detail for how to prep, how to control your momentum, how to place your body, how to engage your muscles, all of those things. But when I was asking everybody what are their struggles, a lot of people were saying, okay, well, single spins, sometimes I'm pretty good with that. I'm okay. But double spins and triple, multiples, whatever, those kind of things, I can't execute them cleanly. I can't execute them with the same precision every single time. So I have content that I've recorded that I wanted to build, into a more progressive course. But in the process of creating this program, I would like to possibly supplement that with more information, more instruction that caters to your struggles. Because ultimately, like, what else am I teaching for, right? If it's not to actually help other people grow. So if you can, please, where you are right now, hopefully you're on a computer, it's a lot easier. But even from your phone, I think you can still hear me in the background if you're using your phone. If you go to bit.ly.com, I'll write it in this one. It is, let's see, create bit.ly.com/F1 spins. Okay. Bit.ly.com, bitly.com/F form. It's a form. Yeah, I know. So creative. The number 1 and then spins. And if you could just please complete that, and let me know what your struggles are. What are your challenges? What are your goals when it comes to spins? So that I can make the best program possible. This program hopefully should be rolled out, I don't know, now maybe a few weeks or so. Once I get more input, that was obviously going to help. But there will be options to take that program. You can obviously do self-study with a lot of the things that I have. You can do it on your own, but I'm also going to offer the option of doing group Q&As, as well as getting personalized video feedback throughout the course, so that, you're not just, because that's another thing that we do sometimes, right? We are learning something. We might even go to classes every single week. But we're kind of like somewhere in the class with, I don't know how many students, and we're not getting that specific attention. So we're not sure whether we're progressing with the right information and the right detail, right? So we're not building that proper foundation. So the personalized element of the course will obviously take care of all of those things, so that you can go through the instruction, follow that, review that as many times through the rest of your life. But you'll also have the element of video feedback, where you can send me something and then I can actually evaluate it and let you know what I'm seeing, what could be fixed, so that the following week when you're practicing the new material, you have a better foundation for that. Okay. So bit.ly.com F1 spins over here. And again, everyone on Instagram, please, please, please throw your questions into the actual question mark. It's going to be really hard for me to go and find your questions as people are logging in, because every time someone joins, it pushes all of the messages up. Okay. Eric in the house from Texas. Okay, so let's get started with one of the questions that I had gotten, and I see that Ahmed kind of answered this too. So, asked this too. What motivates you to go on when you feel like you're done? Yesterday, I had a chat with another dancer. Not entirely sure what her level of dancing is, but her question was, "What if I what if I lose motivation?" Um, in the past, when someone would ask me this, I would generally just kind of start talking, right? I would start talking about motivation and interpret it in the way that I am interpreting motivation at that current moment in my life. Where am I struggling with motivation, right? But what we tend to do is we do tend to kind of generalize and put an umbrella word or definition um, onto what we're actually experiencing that's a little bit more specific. So I had pressed this person who had asked me this, what to do if you lose motivation. And instead of just saying, well, this is what I would do, I was like, well, what is causing you to lose motivation? And she's like, I'm not sure. Right. So if you can't even identify where you're losing the motivation, then it becomes a challenge to actually fix that and regain it and gain some momentum to going forward. So eventually we got to, because she's discouraged with dancing. Again, easy to just throw an answer out, because for myself, I have processed a lot of those things. I have gone through a lack of motivation and discouragement. I continue to go through that with other things in my life. But again, trying to get more to the root of it. So further questioning brought us to a lack of motivation, a loss of motivation that was a result of being discouraged in dance through a comparison to other dancers. So if you're asking me this in Instagram, Ahmed, um, let me know, in what sense exactly. And this is part of our questioning when we are questioning others, when we're asking questions, but also just asking ourselves, what exactly is it that we are trying to figure out? And we're going to go into that later as well with this whole the topic of like, is what you're chasing worth it, right? Or what are you chasing? I mean, do we even know that? So, in terms of this particular question of what if I lose motivation because I'm discouraged through a comparison with other dancers, I would say the first challenge is to um, kind of stop the comparison with other people and begin the comparison with yourself. If you compare it to yourself, you will see that you're always growing every day. Even if you were able to do, let's say, let's go back to spins, right? If you were practicing spins and you started at not being able to do any, and then all of a sudden you were able to do singles, doubles, triples, and then you were doing them really well, and then all of a sudden, for I don't know, for whatever reason, one week you're unable to execute them, you might feel like you can't do them anymore. But in reality, you have actually grown and you have gotten that knowledge and that technique to be able to get to the point where you're at. Maybe right now you're not executing it for whatever reason, but it doesn't mean that it's not actually there. It doesn't mean that you haven't made that growth, right? So the first step is to kind of take a step back from who you comparing yourself to. Like, is it worth comparing? Is it worth chasing that comparison and saying like, am I as good as this person? Or is it better to say, am I better than what I am yesterday? Am I better than where I was last week or last month or last year? It is not an easy thing to do, but we can't be anybody else. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we can't be anybody else. And I believe I talked about this or touched upon it in our last live chat, which was, some of you might know Terry Salsa Alianza, one of my friends and phenomenal dancer, musicality and everything. And what they were saying, these guys are like, oh, I want to be as good or I want to be better than Terry, right? But in what sense, right? And you can't really be better than that person at being that person. So instead of comparing yourself to the person and being like, oh, I'm gonna get like more dancers and a longer line than this person, like think about what are the qualities you actually like in that person. So if you are comparing yourself to other dancers, that's not a bad thing, but what are you comparing yourself to? Oh, I like the way that they spin. Okay, so that's something that you can work on. Now you know what you can actually work on to get better against yourself versus that specific person. So comparison, obviously, with when it comes to how we connect with other people, it often leads to either a sense of arrogance sometimes, right? A sense of ego. Oh, I'm better than this person. I have more than this person. I know more than this person. I can do more spins than this person. Or it leads to a sense of defeat where you're like, I can't do any of these things that this person does. So I'm not worthy and I shouldn't be here and I should just leave. And that's the worst decision you can make because you're absolutely where you want to be, where you belong, and it's your effort and you don't have the same goals or whatever it is, but it's not about comparing to other people. A couple of hellos again. Gokai from Turkey. All right, in the house. Okay. The other question I got, and this is more of a timing thing, and this is more of a dance related topic, but it's about how we approach the dance in general. So the question I got was, um, will you address why followers switch to leads time during shines? It contradicts the whole lead always accommodates the follower. This one is, I'm going to answer this as it relates to timing for shines. But in reality, I think the way we approach dance tends to be a little bit limited. And that's just the way it's been taught all these years. Like there's the lead, there's the follow, the lead dictates, the follower embellishes, the lead is the frame, the follower is the picture, everything is about the follower. And, for those of you who know me, yes, I can see that, but I think that it's a conversation, which means that it's actually about both of us. That our partner dance. I can't do my best without my partner, and likewise. So when it comes to timing, instead of categorizing something as why is it on the lead's timing, why not just make it on a count that happens to be different? That if you are good with your timing, then you should not have a problem going forward on 2 or going forward on 6 or going forward on 3, right? So instead of categorizing things as like, why is it this way when the lead should cater to the follow, it's almost coming in to the dance with a sense of entitlement, which says, well, why should I have to change things? You should be changing things to accommodate me. But when we come in with that attitude into anything, the chances of us moving forward individually, but also as partners becomes much slimmer because now we're just expecting everyone to cater to what we want without acknowledging our own effort into being able to adapt and adjust and make that situation possible, regardless of whether we get what we want or not. Right? I don't know if anyone has anyone else ever thought that. You can throw that in the comments. Like, has anyone else ever thought about like the lead should be catering to the follow? I know a lot of leads believe this, Some follows do too. I know leads, you're usually like, guys, when you're dancing with a lady, you got to make it all about her and you got to make her feel comfortable and all that stuff. But there's very rarely any instruction or instructors that are like, followers, it's also your responsibility to make it comfortable for your lead. Right? I don't know. Throw it in the chat if you've ever had that issue or experienced that. Blevin Sack said, I'm a lead. I feel like it's my responsibility to to what? It's your responsibility to what? See, that's the other thing, right? It's like defining and going down and really going into what are you taking responsibility for? What are you asking someone else to take responsibility for? Try and be specific, because the more ambiguity there is, the more lack of structure there is, the harder it becomes for us to get to an actual solution, to get to a place where we're actually making progress, because we're using terms that are too loaded or that are too vague, and they're too expansive. They span too many things, that the thought of responsibility all of a sudden makes us feel overwhelmed. But if somebody said, hey, you're responsible for staying on time, cool, I could do that. If I'm responsible for the entire dance, holy shit, like, what does that mean? How many things do I have to be thinking of? Right? So if you are one of those people who wants to take that responsibility, I'm totally fine with that. I think we should be proactive in our approach with anything, with any type of conversation, relationship, uh, communication. However, just try and be clear on what you're taking responsibility for, even if you're not expressing it to the other person, at least to yourself, so that you are not, so that you're still able to set some boundaries in the dance, in anything rather. So you're able to set boundaries and make requests for the things that are out of your boundaries. The things that you don't feel you should be responsible for. If you know that, then it's a little bit easier to actually ask someone and say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. It would really help me or us get to this next place if you could take responsibility for X, right? All right, what do we have here? Instagram. I have Kitchi Sang said, how to control work pressure. Bleh. His tongue twisting today. How to control work pressure and personal pressure. My health is affected in terms of body shape, and I'm thinking I'm going through hypertension. That's a very loaded question. I would probably personally, sometimes when I go through stages where I'm kind of going through a lot of stuff and I feel that pressure, I try to write things down. When it's all in our head, it's a little bit harder to tackle, because they're just kind of moving parts and we're grasping at things and saying, oh, I need to do this and I need to do that. But we're unable to actually understand how many things are actually on our plate, what actually needs to be done now, what could be postponed to later, what actually has zero importance and does not need to be completed, what do we need help with, what can we do on our own. So first step I would say is just kind of write things down. Write down your goals, write down what's happening, write down where you feel you're struggling, write down where you feel you're being successful, write down a list of your resources, people that you have, any other type of resource that you have. Write down the kind of emotions that you might be feeling. Write down any important events in your life that could be affecting things, like if you've experienced a loss, if you've experienced a change in your job, you've moved to a new place, anything like that, injury, whatever. Write all those things down, and it becomes a lot easier to say, okay, I can understand why I'm feeling pressure because, well, I lost my job last week, or whatever, and I haven't found one, and I feel like I'm lazy now. My health is, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm not doing anything. Okay, so what are my goals? I would like to be employed and I would like to be in better shape. Okay, what steps can I take towards those goals? Let me hear some websites, or hear some resources, people I know who could probably put me in touch with someone who's hiring. Let me reach out to those people. In terms of my health, what are the things that I could do? Oh, I don't have access to a gym. Okay, are there things that I can do at home or online or whatever? So you can take a lot of steps, but it's really hard to process all of that if it's just in your head, because you literally just kind of dook, 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 and as you reach for something, it's gone. So kind of along the lines of this whole, like, what are we chasing, and is it worth it? Um, a big part of understanding that is being able to actually identify what it is that we're struggling with, what it is that we want, and then clarifying it to the minute details, because in our heads it's just so massive that we can't even understand, we can't fathom the greatness of it. But when you start writing it down, it's just one line of things that you have to do for that moment. It's a task that is a little bit more attainable, something that you can conquer, and then feel another element of accomplishment and success and progress. Hope that helped. Oh, Blevins said responsibility to accommodate, and it's your job to make her look good. Appreciate that, but I feel like it's everyone's responsibility to kind of meet in the middle and make each person better, because that does actually make you look good. You probably look better than her if you're trying to make her look good as a person, just saying. And so if she's trying to do the same, then she's going to look great because she is accommodating and catering and trying to connect with her partner. Okay, coming over here. We got a lot of stuff on YouTube here. Wade said, I lose motivation in the area of, I think I'm not reading that right. I'm going to skip that message unless you want to rewrite that one. But sometimes refocusing what my goals are in dance pretty often is different than others. If I compare myself to others, is to flip the coin and gain motivation on how good I can be on my own. That is a really great point. That's a really excellent point. I'm going to share that if you can see that on the screen, but also on Instagram. If you want to compare yourself to others, a great way to approach it is actually to look at how good they are, and that is something that's attainable to you as well, right? Because all of us, we all started with nothing, with zero experience, right? At some point, even if you started salsa with ballet experience, well, at some point you didn't have bloody ballet experience either, right? So we all started with zero experience in almost any of the things that we feel we have mastered now. So when we're looking at other people, instead of looking at it like, oh, they're so good, I'm not, you almost want to look at it as, wow, they got that good. That means I can too, if I put in the effort and if I accommodate myself, and my own limitations, but also my own strengths. And that's what, with dance, one of the reasons I teach the way I teach, the content that I teach, that it's, for me, it's not all about just moves, but it's really about the mindset and the fundamentals. Like, I'm always about like really understanding your body, is because I realize how many people, including advanced dancers, don't have that awareness, that deep awareness of like, what exactly are you doing? What exactly are you creating? Do you know what your body is doing in that moment? Do you know where you are in that moment? And most people don't. Just like we often don't even know what we're referring to when we say, oh, like, what do I do with motivation, right? If I lose motivation, but in terms of what? And it's like, I didn't think about that. I've heard the term motivation thrown around. So let me put that in there. And, I feel like I've lost motivation, but through what? Right. So same thing is applicable to our dancing. You know, the more you know, the more you ask questions, the more you try and discover and develop that higher level of awareness, self awareness, the more you can do with it. So, whenever I teach, everything I teach, it drills down not just into the technique, a technique not that's stylistic, but a technique that's technical, that is physiological, that a body can execute if it has the same parts, pretty much, in the same ratio of parts. And then on top of that is the element of mindset, which is how are you actually thinking about those things that you're trying to do, right? There's part of it that's our body, and then there's another part that's our mind. And if we are just sitting there training the body without training the mind, we have a ceiling to what we can achieve. So great point, Wade. I love that you brought that up, and that's a great way to compare. If you do want to compare yourself to anybody, compare it in terms of, if they are able to put in all of these years and get to this level of skill and greatness, so can you. And you might not even need to do all of those years if you pursue your present in the right way, in an intentional way. I am where I am after 22 years in dance, right? It's taken me a long time to get to this place that I'm at now. And I'm still growing and I'm still improving, and I'm always trying to do that. Now, the knowledge I have was never presented to me, right? I didn't have anyone else talking about mindset and those kind of things. So if someone reached out to me as a resource starting out now, they could probably get further than I did within the same amount of time, because I have gone through something that I can now relate as information and instruction that can provide growth to someone else. So be aware of the resources that are around you. And if there is something that you want to aspire to be, you know, find out what are the steps that that person has taken to get there, and what are some of the insights that they have specifically, right? There's a lot of generic stuff too. There's general mindset stuff, but there's a lot of specific things that can really help you improve as well. Noisette said, that's why I've always said I'm glad I don't have to be a lead in salsa, but I'm a pretty good Dan follower. Wade, my leading style is inviting my followers to interact, and they can just bring engagement to it. Everything else comes second. Also beautiful. Wade's got a lot of stuff here. Okay, back on Instagram. One second here. Okay. Favorite followers reciprocate energy and enthusiasm until in the dance in their own style, of course. Yep. Into the dance until they with their own style. Yep. That's exactly what I feel. Also, okay. Levin asks, how do you break down musicality to work on moves? That is an entire course, my friend. Not something I can answer in today's live chat. But what I wanted to go into, another question, actually, this was something that I was asked yesterday. Sergio asked, what to do if you think your partner is not having fun? Couple of things with this is, one, what you think might not be reality. That is probably one of the most important things to remember. I have been seeing that in lots of communication and lots of friendships and lots of relationships where, what we think is happening and what we think someone else is feeling, or the reason that they're acting or doing whatever it is that they're doing, might not be the reality, right? So don't assume the worst. Don't think that the person's not having fun. If they have a stank face, and they're just really straight faced, just assume that that's their way of smiling, And if anything, try and give people the credit of being adults, that if they are actually uncomfortable, that hopefully they can communicate that to you so that you can do something about it, instead of sitting there fighting demons in your heads, wondering all of the things that you're doing wrong when you might not be doing anything wrong. It's just that person's facial expression, which they have been nursing for however many years they've been alive, right? So first step would be, one, try not to assume the worst. Try not to assume that someone isn't enjoying themselves just because of a facial expression that's not a smile or laughter. If you want, the second step I would say is, if you want, you could clarify. If you feel like they're doing faces that are cringing with pain, sure, I would say, oh, did that hurt? You can ask a question and try and clarify. Again, clarity really helps. The more ambiguity there is, the more uncertainty you have, the harder becomes to get to an actual solution. So maybe you can clarify and ask that question if you see them actually wincing with pain, to find out what's actually wrong and how you can fix it. And then the other approach is to be creative, right? Get a little bit creative with your interaction with them. See if you can elicit a smile, if that's what you're looking for. Maybe you can get them to laugh about something, right? Or maybe you can do something that's silly or funny just to see if there are other expressions and reactions within this person, or other ways that you can get more connected with the person. But if you stay on the thought, you will get stuck in the thought, and you will most likely get so consumed with it without knowing that you are now contributing to a worse experience in that present moment, because you're floating over here in this unknown. And our imaginations are impressive. If we want to think that someone hates us, we can find all sorts of things that we could have done that might have upset them, right? We can do that. So instead of doing that, use your imagination in a more productive, in a more positive and constructive way, and try and create. See what you can create with that person in the present moment to bring them back into a connection with you, or to elicit a different reaction or emotional expression or facial expression out of that person. So that's one more thing. Jesse from Austin. Hi, Jesse. Jihan from Turkey. Okay, so I am going to go into the reason I was talking about this chasing. Like, is what you're chasing worth it? Are you sure you're chasing the right thing? And this kind of came about as a result of my own relationships and just kind of these past couple of years, but also through some conversations with some friends of mine, who I guess were going through this similar experience, which was, and I don't know if you've had this experience. I feel like we must have all had it at some point or another, but where you have friends, right? You've got relationships with certain people, and they were amazing. And let's say you had like really deep, profound relationship. You spent all this time together with them, and then things change, and now you're just not that connected. But this is supposed to be your best friend for life type of thing, or at least that's what you were thinking in that moment. And so what I've done, and I've been guilty of it, is like chasing the memory, so the past, instead of chasing a goal, chasing the present moment, and chasing a future, right? So I've sat there thinking about the past and saying, oh, we used to do X, Y, and Z. We used to spend all of this time. We used to hang out more. We used to talk about all of these things. All of this is in the past, and they're all great things, right? But they don't necessarily help the present situation. So instead of focusing on chasing those memories, what I've tried to do now is chase the friendship, right? Which allows me to say, this was our friendship before. And it was there because of the circumstances and the environment that supported that friendship, right? So quarantine is a great example. I mean, a lot of us were stuck with just certain people. That was our small bubble of people that we spent all of our time with, right? Versus the year before, where we were traveling, where we were doing this, where we were commuting, where we had people that we saw at work, people that we saw socially, that we went out to the nightlife with, on the weekends, vacations, all of this stuff. And all of a sudden now you can't do any of those things, and you're stuck with like a small group of people. Sure, your relationships with those people in that environment is probably going to intensify and get deeper because it was the only person you're spending time with. However, when things resume, like life goes back to a new normal, that person is also going to change. And so are you. And as a result, so is that equation, that relationship with that person. Now, you might be in a position that still has a lot of time. you know. Um, but that person might have gone into a different stage in their life. So your request, which they could fulfill in the past when they weren't in that stage where they had an equal amount of time, cannot actually be fulfilled today in the same way. So chasing that memory, right? Chasing the past and trying to superimpose it onto the present only complicates the present relationship. So when I was talking about this with my friend, it was this feeling like, and I had this with my own friends, but the person I was talking to was dealing with this too, with friends who she felt she was really close to, and then all of a sudden, no one's really putting in the effort, and then it's like, well, I don't understand why they're not doing this, and why I'm the one who's always reaching out, and we used to hang out and we had such a great time. I don't know what happened, right? And same thing with myself, with certain friends in my life who have a different trajectory now, right? And yeah, in the past, I used to kind of feel a little bit resentful. Like I thought we had something that meant something, right? I thought that there was some importance to what we have, and that's why you put in all of that effort. That's why we put in all of that effort, and that's why we have the friendship that we have. And I started looking at the past and the effort in the past as if that's what dictated this friendship. But in reality, there's so many other elements to the friendship that make it possible. And if I focus on the friendship instead, on that relationship, and try and again use that imagination in a positive way and try and create something that accommodates where both of us are today, it makes a future possible, right? However, if I approach it with a hold on the past, chasing the past, and a resentment instead in the present, instead of imagination and creativity for the future, a resentment of, you know, you don't do all of these things. It's been so long. Like, how have you not maintained contact? Why have you not put in effort? Right? All of this negative energy, if I place that onto my present, then it almost eliminates the possibility of growth in the future, right? I'm talking about friendships. I mean, I've had to deal with that with friends who, I love to death. And I realized that I don't have to stop loving you to death just because you're not available in the same way, right? A good friend is a good friend. And we know those qualities that make somebody a good friend, like someone who's actually there for you when you need them, if you like really need them. But there's also an element of like compassion through that whole process where it's like, you know, maybe things have changed, maybe the circumstances have changed, but there's also this element of like, do I know what's changed? Have I bothered to find out? Have I asked and said, hey, are you going through anything? Right? Because another element that prevents that communication or creates distance is our nature of self preservation, right? Where self-preservation and also kind of this desire not to burden other people. So when I'm going through things, I'll admit like I usually back out, right? Like even with like close friends, I'm usually trying to figure things out and deal with everything before I communicate it. I want to like communicate the lesson and the growth instead of the pain and the struggle, right? Even though I know, like my friends are always like, no, that's what I'm here for. I'm here for you so you can go through all of that stuff and I can support you through it, right? And I'm getting better at it. But most of the time that's my approach where I don't want to burden somebody else, right? So I'd rather create some distance so I don't have to talk to you about the things that I'm struggling with or having to go through, right? And likewise, I might not be talking to you because I can only handle what I can handle, right? If I'm going through a whole bunch of stuff in my personal life, I don't really want to hear about anybody else's, because I just don't have the bandwidth to manage mine and yours, mine and everything else, right? So that's another reason why we sometimes pull away. Sometimes it's a matter of like we just have redirected our focus on other things. Sometimes it's a matter of we have so many things on our plate that we maybe don't want, but ultimately it's still a lot of things on our plate. And now we can't accommodate even the good things because the plate is full, right? And so there's that element of compassion that allows you to actually approach those relationships that you feel have drifted apart. And instead of carrying a sense of resentment towards them and blame, right, and accusation, bringing some compassion to that equation instead and seeing how and if you can create something for the future, right? I would say that we could apply that to pretty much anything that we're doing, right? It could be friendships, it could be intimate relationships, it could also just be dance, right? Um, you every moment that you have with a new partner, you don't want to be bringing in, well, the last time we had a dance, it was great, so this dance better be just as good, right? That's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. Instead of saying, we had a really great dance last time. I remember that fondly. I have a positive memory. I can't wait to see what we can create. Because we had the capacity to create that in the past, I'm sure we have the capacity to create something different, but equally fulfilling in the present, you know? And if you find that the present has changed so much, that the person that you're interacting with has changed so much that they can't provide you with anything, well, those are those moments where you walk away. But most of the time, there's something that we can do still with that person in a new environment, in a new situation, in a new body, and in a new mind. But it does require our effort. It does require us to first understand, what are we chasing, right? When we say, oh, I just want our friendship back. But are you friendship back, or the past of your friendship, right? So it's a little bit different. Like, do you want a friendship with this person again, or are you chasing what you had with this person in the past? Because the past is gone. We're not living in the past. The past is gone. It cannot be recreated because those moments are all unique moments. All you can do is what you have here and now. So if you're really seeking a friendship, if you're really looking to rekindle a relationship with your friend, then it requires an acknowledgement of the present, and a clarity in what you're looking for, and also a definition of what that is. Like, I'm looking for a friendship. What does a friendship mean to me? Friendship means these things. Okay. This person can't provide all of these things to me. Can I still be friends with them? Do I have different tiers of friendship? Okay. Do I need to put you at a different tier of friendship because you can't provide these things? Or the quality of our friendship still allows it to be here, even though we don't have the frequency of these other things that we would normally do or did in the past, right? So a few different ways to approach it that allow, again, like I said, that allow a conversation to be had that opens the doors to a future. But most of the time, we come in, I've done it too, I've had it done to me, most of the time we come in with this resentment and an instant like guilt, right? Like, I've had friends, it's like, oh, it's been so long, like, we haven't even talked, it's like you forgot about me. It's like, oh, yeah, now I want to forget about you. Now I don't want to talk to you, right? And I've done that too, right? I've done that in my past where I'm like, oh, it's like, if I don't reach out, you don't reach out. Who cares, man? Who reaches out? Right? Ultimately, if that person is somebody that you feel, if you reached out and you're like, look, I'm struggling, I need, that person would make time for you, that's probably a pretty good friend, right? If life and time and all of these other things has taken up most of their energy and attention, but they can still be that person to you, it's probably still a good friend, right? So why bring the guilt into the equation? Instead of doing that, like, is possibly just instead saying, hey, it's been a long time. I miss you. How are you? Right? And that opens the door to the future. Instead of saying, hey, it's been a long time, you haven't reached out, this person doesn't want to hang out with you now. This person's like, oh, yeah, great. this is the last thing I needed. I'm so glad I didn't reach out to you in all this time, and now I definitely won't be reaching out to you, and I'm not trying to make any plans either. But when you open the door with a little bit of just open-endedness, right, and just the positivity, right, then all of a sudden you can open a future, pave that path for a potential future. All right, so let me just read some comments. Sorry, I've been talking a lot. First, there's a question. Miss Erica, I've been told that I'm intimidating. How or what can I do in order to be more approachable? Um, Beautiful question. I have sometimes heard that too. I don't think I'm intimidating because I think I'm like a little kid, right? Unless you find like that rambunctious energy of children intimidating, which it can be, right? I don't think I'm intimidating, but you're you're probably not projecting an intimidating aura. It is usually someone else's insecurities or fears that project a sense of intimidation on you. Like it's not necessarily something you can do to change that. Um, if you feel like you interact with people in a kind manner, in a compassionate manner, if you communicate from a place of level versus a hierarchy and condescension. Um, if you are open to other people's questions and opinions and thoughts and can engage in a good discussion, I don't think you're intimidating. You're probably just exactly how you should be, and there's nothing you need to do to be more approachable. The people that find you intimidating are often projecting the things that they are scared of on other people, right? If I don't feel confident myself, someone who's really confident scares me. So I want to kind of back away from that person. That's not that person's fault for being confident. That's my problem for my own insecurities and feeling whatever fear I have and not having that confidence myself. Okay. Okay. Let me just go through this again. Uh, Ahmed said, talking about bandwidth. You're not a microwave transceiver. um, IR Coffees is in the house from Iran. Blevin said, I needed to hear this today. I'm struggling with something like this right now. I'm really glad to say this. This is one of the reasons I have been doing the live chats again. There's a dance stuff. Yes, there's a dance courses and Blevin, you were talking about the musicality and all that stuff. That will be available on another platform in a different format. These live chats are to really, again, try and answer the questions that you have, um, the questions that I've heard, the observations that I've made, and the struggles I've gone through. I read this somewhere, or I heard this somewhere. I can't remember the verbatim, but it's like the people that you learn from, like a book, right? Someone who's written a book and you're like, wow, this is really great. And I've gotten all these lessons from it. Like we rarely look at the person who's written the book, who's provided that information. Um, we just kind of look at them and it's like, wow, this is a talented writer, right? Oh, it's a really great way to summarize their experience and present all of these lessons. But for someone to get to a point to present lessons, they've probably gone through a lot, right? And that's the part that we don't see, right? And you can look at it through dance, for example, right? Someone who's able to teach is not because they're a beginner. It's not because they don't know anything. It's because they know a lot. And it's because they've gone through a lot. They've gone through the struggles. They've dealt with the rejection. They have dealt with the judgment. They've pushed forward, kept on creating, made mistakes, fell, got injured, learned, and then developed a better technique. And then now, here they are poised and in this just perfect package, presenting all of that information to you in a way that you can understand it, right? And we just kind of take that moment and say, this is great. Thanks. You're a great teacher, right? Instead of taking that moment and saying, thanks, you're a great teacher. Wow, all the things you must have gone through to get to this point of this level of knowledge and this ability to communicate this lesson to me so I can understand it, right? And speaking of that, I'm going to go into this a little bit more. But speaking of that, um, there when you look at things that way, it kind of gives you a different level of appreciation for the person, right? Um, and there is gratitude and there's appreciation. Gratitude is where we're like, thank you so much, thank you for what you did. That's really, and in terms of expression of gratitude, that's all you really need to do. Appreciation is where we kind of take that a step further and show somebody that they are appreciating. It's like, I appreciate you from my, cubby, and you never know that. Like, do you really know? Are you appreciated? Because you don't feel appreciated. I've never expressed it to you. I just say it, you know. So, what are the actions that I'm taking to help you feel appreciated? So, in my, this little tiny segue, um, gratitude, of course, I'm so happy that you are here. I appreciate all of you being here, and I'm glad to help, of course. If you want to show your appreciation, you know, there is a feedback form that I always ask everyone to fill out. It doesn't take very long to complete. You might have filled it out before, but every live chat is a different topic. There are different things that we talk about in these live chats. So every form submission you could have, is a different submission, right? Those things, those forms make a huge difference to me. They're very important to me because um, I learn from them. I understand what impacted you, what you would like to know more about. Those are places you can ask questions for future lives. If I wasn't able to get to you today, that's where you can throw that in, and then I can kind of have that in mind for another topic in the future. But it's one way to show appreciation. So I definitely take gratitude. You do not have to even go that extra step of appreciation. Gratitude is fine. You don't even have to share that. The fact that you're here, present, and you're absorbing all this information. That's really ultimately what I'm here for, is to help. So if I don't hear the thank you, it doesn't really matter. I'm still going to provide the help. If I hear the thank you and I don't get the appreciation in a feedback form, or whatever, subscribe, like, share, because those are some of the ways that I can see appreciation, right? It's not to say that those things are appreciation, but those are ways that I, as a content creator, as a coach, as a teacher, feel and experience tangibly what it means to be being appreciated. So, if you don't mind, I would really appreciate if all of you could. That's why I always say that. I would appreciate if you could go to my website, magnagopal.com. If you just go to the contact section, there's a bunch of feedback forms, and one of them is the live chat form. So, anytime you're on these lives with me, if you can go and complete one of those, let me know what meant something to you. Blevin, you said you needed to hear this today. I would love to know, obviously in pure confidence, because in the forum it's just me who's reading it, not everybody else in chat, what you actually were struggling with. So maybe I have something else I can offer, right? Like today's topic, this whole chasing, like what are we chasing? And is it worth it? This whole topic came out of a very personal story with a friend of mine, who was sharing what she was struggling with. And I was like, okay, this is how you're approaching things. And can you see how you are coloring the present in a way that doesn't allow you to create a future? Because of all this resentment and all of these expectations that you have that are all based on a past, right? So that personal story allowed me to come here today and share this with all of you, which now I'm finding out has really helped some of you. So that's what that form will allow you to do more of, and allow me to do more of. La Romancha, I feel like I'm saying that wrong. I love what you're saying. Thank you for the inspiration. With pleasure. Ahmed in the house, also saying the same. Where we have the last couple of stuff here. JD Smith, love how you contribute so much more than dancing. Wise young woman. Well, this is my wisdom right here. It's all I gotta say. Wade said, thank you for sharing that aspect of friendship. Found a profound way to approach them. Great. I'm so happy. And Alex, on the dance, persistence is always somehow rewarded in the end. It Okay, let me just comment on that real quick. Um, Alex said, in dance, the persistence is always somehow rewarded in the end. It is when it's personal. It really is when it's personal. If you persist, if you dedicate your time and you go after those things, yes, you can definitely see the reward in your growth, in your self-awareness, your improvement in technique, and your better connections and all of that stuff. Persistence with people doesn't always work. Persistence with people can feel like pressure because you just don't know where they're at, right? And when it comes to people, again, if we don't take the time to discover what it is that they're going through, it becomes harder for us to actually um, package our message in a way that can get us the communication, the response that we want. Okay. So if you are persistent with people, be careful because persistence can look like being a pest. That's what I remember I was like when I started dancing. I was persistent if you took out a whole bunch of letters and left the letters PEST, which is a pest. I was just like, like this annoying little person. Like, do you want to dance? Do you want to dance? Can we dance? Please dance. Like, because I really wanted to dance, and I'm sure I was annoying. I'm sure I'm still annoying, right? Now on when I get that same, like, someone always like, oh, but you didn't dance with me last time, constantly pushing, it makes me want to dance with them less. With friendships, if you keep on pushing without this acknowledgement of where they're at and what they can provide, it just makes it worse. So be mindful of what you're being persistent with and what you're chasing again, right? If you are chasing that person's time and energy and you're persistent at that, you will be pushed out of their life. If you are chasing a friendship and you are persistent at that, you probably have more success because friendship comes in many forms that don't require as much time and energy. There are many equations and there are many factors and ingredients that create that recipe for a good friendship. And I mean, I'm sure many of you have that, but I can definitely speak from experience that I have friends around the world. I have people I have never even met who I have like amazing connections with, right? I have people next door. And they're all good friends. They're all people I can really count on when I need something or if I need to talk about something, right? So people who are like, yeah, well, if you're a real friend, we would spend more time. Is it true though? Right? That's what I had to ask myself when it came to some of my friendships where we did spend a lot of time together and all of a sudden we didn't. I was like, well, I don't feel like, right. And I realized that's so not fair because I have people who are ranked at the same level or higher than this person who I barely talk to, right? So be mindful of what you're chasing, you know and if you can be clear on that, some things persistence does lead to reward, and in other situations persistence leads to distance. So take your time and kind of evaluate what you are pursuing with that stuff. All right. um on that note, again, like I said, if you want to show support, hit subscribe on YouTube, share this. The replay will be on the YouTube channel. You can share that there. um Feedback form, pretty please go to my website. If you're on any of these platforms watching this live, then you know my name. Hopefully, you should be able to see it. magnagopal.com. Go to the contact section. You'll see the feedback form for the live chat Q&A. If you want to support in other ways, you can always buy a badge on Instagram, buy a coffee on the description over there in Facebook and YouTube. And yeah, leave a comment. Let me know if there's something else that you would like me to talk about. Ask your questions in the feedback form. And other than that, keep an eye out. Oh yeah, sorry, crap, forgot the sporms, the spins form. There's one other form. Some of you who showed up a little bit later might not have heard me. bit.ly.com, bitly.com /F1, F for forms, the one as a number, spins. This is for the spins program that I am working on. I would like to understand what all of you are struggling with so that I can try and include that in the best way into this program and provide the best instructions so that we can overcome those challenges, those frustrations, those hurdles that you have when it comes to spins. Okay. And on that note, I hope you all have a lovely afternoon, lovely morning, lovely evening, wherever you are in the world. I appreciate all of you joining. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please, hit like, hit subscribe, share it. And if you didn't, let me know. Let me know in the comments because I'd like to know what I could have done better, or what I could have answered, or whatever the case is. Okay. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you, at least in this space, in about a month. Bye.